Hi everybody and welcome. The Brackies Game Jam has been over for a little over a week now, and I know a lot of people participated and had a really great time doing so. My name's Peter Jessamine. I also participated in the Game Jam. It was my first Game Jam, so I found it a little bit stressful, and it's also the first game that I actually completed other than the ones that I completed on tutorials some couple of years ago. I made it in Unity, as did most people, and this is it, Time and Tide. It's a short adventure that explores the concept of death and grief in a light-hearted way. I truly hoped it came across as intended, and for those of you who have played it, which aren't that many yet, you all seemed to get the vibe and enjoy it. On the submissions page here, I got some nice reviews. Mark 000.99 says, "I love how you took the theme to an emotional level," and there were, a few reviews to that extent, but it's only been rated by 27 people so far. But I'm very proud of what happened. The game was buggy, as was to be expected. There was one bug with the music which was very annoying because it was an oversight that shouldn't have happened, but it's been patched for the future version that will happen when the ratings of the jam are over. Now, the purpose of this video was just, a few people asked, how did you get it done so quick for the size of the level? And, and so I just thought I would make a little breakdown of my workflow between Blender and Unity, and sort of how I started. Now, the first thing to note is that this was an idea that I had several years ago, the concept, and it was originally intended to be a kind of walking simulator, realistic kind of tropey game, as I'd played Dear Esther and some similar titles at the time, and due to Dunning-Kruger, I started the project several times, not really realizing how much work goes into making a video game, and I had to really pull myself back. So, I work full-time doing something other than 3D art and video games, which is very dull, but it pays the bills and it pays for my subscriptions to software and my food and electricity and everything, and new computer parts. One day maybe I'll be able to work making games or making art for games. Now, so yeah, I did pull back and I stopped making games and I focused on Blender. I found that art, and in particular environment art, modeling, was what I like doing, but also a bit of sculpting. So I'll take you over to my art station, and this is just a sample of stuff that I've done over the last couple of years. I keep these two at the bottom here, the wolf and the little witch bottle. These were two of the first things that I made when I started doing 3D. I keep them on here. They're pretty badly put together, but they just remind me of how far I've come. And I basically, a lot of the stuff is just stuff that I'm either proud of, that shows my progress, and a couple of competitions that I've entered. So, I got an honorable mention in the CG Boost challenge for their Time Traveler challenge last year, and that was a big boost for me. I don't know why. There was a lot of what I consider to be better pieces in that particular challenge. I really focus heavily on storytelling on this one. It was about a time traveler, and I'm quite proud of that. But I'm more proud of some of the other entries that I did. For example, this one, which didn't get an honourable mention, but I like that one more, basically. And this year I also entered the Cyberpunk Challenge, which was to create a realistic a real-time environment. I use the Blender Eevee engine to render it out in the end. I was going to use Unity, but for some reason I had a conflict in my graphics card that kept crashing Unity. So, and Unreal. It was crashing Unity and Unreal. So this is basically my background. But I decided to go low poly for the challenge, for the game jam, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get the level of fidelity that I would want from, if I was going to model everything within the week, I wasn't going to be able to get the level of fidelity that I would want from a more realistic type setting. So one particular channel that I kind of watch just to chill out almost is the Infenzia YouTube channel, and he does all of these 10-minute challenges. Now, it's important that I mention him, as not only did I use a lot of the techniques that he sort of shows in these videos. You guys are probably familiar if you've ever typed in low poly in Blender. But I also use the color palette that he uses, that he's created. So I'd like to give props to him. I think that if you go onto his page, sometimes he has a link where you can download the color palette. Now, I downloaded it for my project. Now, we'll go over to Blender and we'll see the environment. Now, the only two things that I believe that I had modeled prior to making this level were the church, which is at the beginning, which sits on this hill, and also the main character I had modeled a few weeks prior. But everything else was made for the game challenge. And as you can see here, I've just nothing's really optimized. I just worked very quickly to very quickly to iterate as quickly as I possibly could, and yeah, I made a low poly environment. So basically, we'll go for a little stroll through the level. Okay, so in the game, it starts out over here. Now, I've added things since the upload, like these letterboxes. I am working to improve the game and flesh it out a bit, but I basically had to, make a list of things and prioritize what I was going to include. So this whole portion of running down this hill, there was meant to be a stream running alongside, and the stream was going to come out of a cliff and be a waterfall. Now, I had to completely remove that from the game because I just didn't have time. This bridge that I constructed, I had to remodel about 3 or 4 times because I was not happy with the way that it came across, and a lot of the cliffs and a lot of the background are just this one object duplicated many times. So very poor optimization there. So that will be something that when I do a future version, that will be more optimized, because I'm using a lot of polygons, especially with these trees. So the forest, every single one of these trees is unique. And the way that I achieved that, if we can see through the modifiers, if I move this, you'll see that the tree, the polygons and the vertices on the tree are moving, and that's because when I use the displace, let's have a look at our modifiers. When I use the displace modifier and I use the texture here, I think probably a clouds texture. Let's have a look. Yeah, so I use the global coordinates, and I used Alt-D to create instances of the trees. So if you remodel one of them, if you change a vertex on one of them, it'll change it on all of them. But because I'm using the global coordinates for the texture, it makes each one of the trees unique. Now, I think this is important because it didn't make the forest look. I mean, it's going to take up more space on the file, but not by much because they're very low poly. So it's important because it makes the forest look like a forest, even though it's low poly, because you don't get identical trees in nature. So why would you get identical trees in the forest that you're creating? And then I used to get, I mean, there's intersecting geometry. It's all really poor. If you go close to detail, there's floating trees, which if you played the game, you'll know I included a very meta joke about. But overall, I think the effect came off good. You know, they're all on slightly different angles, and how I achieved that, we'll just we'll get this one over, and we'll duplicate it a couple of times. And so I'll just select all of these, and we've got the final one selected. And so if you go to press F3 and type in rando, because we're all randos, you can see randomized transform. Okay, and I've got the pivot point, as you can see, at the base of the tree. So if I rotate them on the Z-axis, they're all going to randomly rotate on the Z-axis. Then you rotate them a little bit on that axis, a little bit on that axis. Don't change the Z location because they're all snapped to the ground. Well, they will be. And you can just do that. And you can even, you type in scale even, and you can even go like 1.2, and they will all be slightly different sizes, which is something that you probably know. They're both very simple tricks, but this is how I got the forest looking unique. Something else I used, which is a hacky trick, was I actually got a paid for asset, if I can find it. So this is called the Botanic. It's a paid, you can spawn, it's a foliage tree asset. You know, it's for making scenes, like for more high poly things, so you can bring wherever it's gone. No idea where that's gone. Oh well. That's in the scene somewhere now. I'll have to. Oh, it'll be over there. I better get rid of that. So yeah, there you see a tree. But this particular paid asset, paid plugin for Blender, has a little feature called Snap to Ground. So we'll just make sure that that's above there. And this is really good because I could just basically spawn the trees wherever I wanted, and go snap to ground, and they would all do that. So I basically had them all up across here, and I clicked snap to ground, and they snapped to the surface that I had made, which was really, really good, and it works. So basically that's about it in Blender. A few different techniques. Another thing, use the same technique for these paving stones. So each one of these paving stones is actually unique, which it's just another thing. You don't necessarily notice it in game, but it does make the whole vibe. It makes it feel real, more real, despite being a low poly game. So if we just duplicate this, I want to show you one more thing. Make use of vertex groups. I don't know if I did it in this, but if we open this up, let's see if I did. I didn't use it in this. I just probably selected these geometries, but the way that, you know, that Infenzia, his workflow involves is, we'll just make that. So he uses this color palette, which I found very useful. because it's got all gradients on there. So if I use the unwrap, project to view, project from view, I get this nice little shape of the tree, which I can then scale and move, and I put it on that one. The tips of the tree are slightly brighter, the bottom of the tree slightly darker. Very simplistic view of ambient occlusion, I guess, but the effect is really cool. So that was, my process in Blender. The buildings, I actually used a free plugin called the Building Tool, which I can show you quickly here. I think that's there. So you go create floor plan. We'll just go that. We'll isolate that so it's on its own. And then you can go into edit mode, and it just says add floors. Then you can select another face. You can go add floors. You can go add roof. Now, then you can go down here and you can go make it a gable roof, and you can add windows, make it 2 windows, give it a glass panes, and it's got all of these parameters. It's a really good tool. It's more for blocking things out, but for the low poly vibe that I was going for, it worked perfectly. I would probably model things differently if I was going for a more detailed vibe, but this is a very, very great tool. It's called Building Tools. You can find it, I think, maybe on the Blender website or something like that. I personally found it very useful, and it also creates the materials for you, or as you go along, or it creates the vertex groups for you. So if I go into edit mode, I can go to window panes, I can go select, or let's choose the roof. We can go select, and we can create a vertex group, and we can go roof. Okay, assign, deselect, select, make sure it's working. Well, it's included the windows, obviously, because I had those selected. But then you can go, you project from view, and we'll give it the same material, which I believe is material that I called it. And we can just go and choose a roof color that we like. You can go scale 0, G, and we got a green roof and green windows because I had those selected at that time. So that's a really handy, quickly iterative tool. I didn't do anything else to the buildings. The meshes, they don't create too many n-gons, but they do create n-gons, but it's all flat anyway. You can add bevels, I guess, which may not work as you want them to because of the n-gons. But yeah, great tool for blocking things out, and also for low poly stuff like this. One thing is that these power lines, I'm using Blender 2.9 beta for the most of this. I don't know why. I like to have the latest, but this is a new version. Let's actually check if it's here. I use the curve add-ons to create these catenaries, but I don't believe it was in 2.9 beta. So if we go to preferences and we go to curve, add curve tool, so it's installed, and it has exclamation mark work in process. And if I choose 2 meshes, which I've got 2, we'll choose this one. Well, we'll choose these 2 letterboxes, and we'll go into isolated mode. And I do not believe, no, the extra curve tools, I had to take this back into the 2.83 to to get that going. But yeah, really great thing, really great add-on. We'll just get rid of this. This is 2.83. We'll copy these and we'll paste them in here. Okay. And if you go curve tools now, you've got all of these extra ones. Right at the bottom there's something called knots, which you can press K for, and then you can press catenary. And now we have a curve under there, and for low poly mode, you know, it doesn't need a high resolution. We can have a bevel resolution, bevel radius rather, and yep, there you go. So you now have hanging pipes, you can hanging cables, you can make it go up and down as much as you like. Very, very great tool for getting cables into your scene, especially if you're doing a sci-fi scene or something like that. Look, this is something that some people may know. I think it's a great tip. You know, if you're doing an alleyway scene and you need lots of wires hanging over, you know, stuff like that. Really, really great tip. And especially with the curves, being able to twist them and things like that with Control T. If you've got a profile of multiple cables, having cables twisting around each other, yeah, that's really cool stuff as well. So yeah, basically that's the Blender side of things. Now over in Unity, we'll look at our scene in Unity. So here we have the scene. The lighting is set up right now for the intro, and yeah, basically the whole game, all of the lighting in the game and the global illumination is real time and driven by one directional light, I believe. There's one other point light in the game, and that's kind of a spoiler, so we won't talk about that just yet. But yeah, going through, you can see in Unity, I just directly imported, I would save all of my FBX Blender files directly into Unity, so that if I updated them in Blender, they would automatically update in Unity, which was great. Now I did use a paid water shader. I was going to find a tutorial on how to make a water shader or a vertex displacement shader for Unity, but I did not have time. As I said, I made this over 6 nights and 2 weekend days. I did a Sunday, and then I did the Saturday the following week, and then I did about between 5 and 6 hours every night after work, so I just didn't have time for everything. As you can see, in the Unity version of the game, I have duplicated the very bad background props several times to give us a mountain. Now, let's just press play and have a look at the game. Also, I've got to mention now, the guy who did the soundtrack for this, who helped me out with this at the last minute, did a fantastic job, and I am super stupidly stoked on how it all came together at the end. So yeah, this is it. I didn't do a menu screen, anything like that. I just decided to cut that out entirely because it's a short story. It's like a short film. It doesn't really need a menu screen. There's no sound effects apart from ambient sound effects in the music. Something else that I also had to cut out, as I just didn't have time to mess around. I wanted to create the whole experience, and it would have been nice to have some additional sound effects. Now I made these little directional thingos in Photoshop. Just got my Wacom tablet out, drew them up quickly, exported as a PNG with alpha. So yeah, this is the latest build of the game. I've updated quite a few things. There you go. Introducing that RPG music, that intro music. I'm only using vanilla Unity HD render pipeline, Unity 2019.4 long-term support. and vanilla post-processing effects on the sky and fog volume. So yeah, I am really happy with the way that it came across. I'm happy with how it looks. I'm happy with now I'll explain a little bit about the character controller and everything in a moment, and how that is something else that really a lot of you who played the game said that they already went over here and thought there was nothing there because I didn't put in anything to indicate that that's somewhere that you have to come back to. So this is something that I've added. No use for this now. I've added that in to imply that you might have to come back there later, so as not to confuse the player. Thank you for your feedback. Whoever said that, that was well put. Let's see who that was. I believe it was thank you JN Squared for your feedback. That was really well put. Somebody else also said, I don't feel like the boys follow each other close enough, so now he's following a lot closer, and it makes it feel a little bit more intimate and a little bit more like an adventure. So thank you for that feedback as well. That's another patch that I've fixed. I've also fixed the glitch that when you went back towards the first house, that the music would start playing twice. So the people who gave me that feedback, thank you for that. That has also been patched in this current build. I do plan on fleshing it out and making an additional quest, probably involving this area here. I'm not sure. Just to make it more, not to like, just to make it more of what it should have been, but that I wanted it to be. But given the time constraints, I was unable to. So that's basically it. Now, coming through here, I just love this. I love this little scene coming through here. The light shafts, everything. The light glistening off the trees. I just think it really adds to the atmosphere. And this is where the tarmac becomes a dirt road. And we're off on the forest path. Now, these stones cause a lot of problems. You can get stuck in them. And there goes that music change. And the vibe is it just works so well. So Deno, or Denbryonic as he's known on SoundCloud, go and check him out. He produces hip hop music, he produces video game music, stuff that sounds like it's out of No Man's Sky, stuff that will make you cry, stuff that makes you want to jump up and down. He does it all, and he's fantastic, and I'm super grateful for him jumping on board and participating in this project, because it would not be anything that it is without his music in here. It really just is the glue that binds this very mediocre adventure game that I've made, and it turns it from a mediocre adventure game to a mediocre adventure game that makes you feel something. So yeah, fantastic. This is the scene where your mate, your dead mate, finds a doubloon or a golden coin, which is integral to the plot. And there's a lot of hip-hop references, a lot of Wu-Tang references in this game. And there's a reason for that. But I feel... Anyway, I won't go right through to the end because I don't want to spoil the ending for anybody who hasn't played it yet. Yeah. I never got rid of those floating trees, and I decided it was far more productive to add in an invented a text event about them than to actually just delete them. So that worked. It got a few laughs out of a few people, and I wanted the vibe to change here. I wanted it to go from deep in the forest to lonely cliff top vibe, you know, where you might meet a, you know, I wanted the vibe to change. So I changed the environment to a more rocky, cut the music, just wind effects, howling quiet, howling wind in the background. Now, we won't play the rest of the game because, you know, this is coming towards the end now. But basically, yeah, that's it. And now I'll just explain a little bit about in Unity how my workflow. So like I said, I use the paid asset for the water, but everything else is directly for Blender, and I used a visual scripting tool. Unity's not well known for, you know, Unreal's much better for visual scripting, because Unity's a bit of a mess right now, if I'm honest. It doesn't know what it wants to be. I think it is going to get better, but yeah, it's got the dots thing, it's got the HD render pipeline. Unreal knows what it is a bit more than Unity does. So, you know, that's why I'm using an older version of Unity. But a couple of years ago, I found this. My project's very messy, by the way, so no judgment, please. It's called the Game Creator add-on. So I'll show you how it works. So it's got these triggers. So a trigger is just basically a collider, okay, and then you can indicate how the trigger. So we've got our game start trigger. Well, let's find these conversation triggers. First chat, okay. This one's called first chat. We'll go up to it. This is just a box collider, okay, and it's got this component trigger added to it. And it's got the box ticked that it is a trigger, and then as a child of the trigger, you have an actions box, and these actions boxes they just show up in your inspector over here. It's not like it is node based, but it's not as node based as it's a bit more simple. It's just, you know, this happens, then that happens. So we've got the message after he gets the coin, and he goes, "Cream, get the money," and then you wait, and that lasts for 3 seconds on screen, and then it waits for a second and a half, and then you go dollar bill, y'all. Wait for on screen for 3 seconds, wait, and that's basically how it works. And you can add an action, and it just has these. You've got variables, you've got debug messages, you've got stuff to do with the character, the camera, all of these different things that you can, you know, basically do if you're a coder, which I'm not, in your inspector. So I found that very, very useful. Online there's some tutorials of some people who've done some really tricky and amazing stuff, like riding hover bikes and stuff like that. I haven't done anything like that with it. However, for somebody like me who can't code or anything like that, I never would have completed the game. The game also has a built-in character. So if we just go, let's just make this smaller. Let's just make a character. So game creator, we've got that in our right click menu, and we can just make let's just make a character, okay. And then what I do he's in the T-pose. Basically, he'll go into idle as soon as we press play, and he's got some behaviors attached to him. So basic parameters, advanced parameters. But what's great is that it's all based off Mixamo animations, and you've got these different states the character can be in and all sorts. And this is all part of the Game Creator software made by Catsoft Studios. I believe it's one guy in Spain and Barcelona and Catalonia making this from memory, and I did have some good email dialogues with him a couple of years ago when it was in beta and I was trying to figure out how to use it. But what's really great about this is that I can just take my guy that I've made and I can just drop him there. Oh, I believe I can drop him there. Oh, one of these is wrong. There we go. Okay, and he's way too big because I imported him from Mixamo. And anyway, so all I have to do is shrink him down, I think. So 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and there you've got it. You might have to, edit. So I brought my character that I made in Blender, but this is not even a character. It's basically a base mesh, right? It's not even like, I did do a bit of sculpting to make sure his clothes weren't like identical on both sides, and make him look a little bit more rough and tumble. He's wearing a school uniform, or what we used to kind of wear as a school uniform in New Zealand, what it appears to be. And yeah, very simple, but all I did is import my guy into Mixamo, save him in the T-pose, okay, and then import the T-pose FBX from Mixamo, the FBX for Unity, and it works. Okay, so the whole animations that the whole character control has been set up based on Mixamo animations by this guy, Catsoft Studios, and for somebody like me, that's amazing. That means I can get to work straight away, and that if I had to build my own character controller, my purpose for entering the Game Jam was not to show people, hey, I can build a character controller, or hey, I've got a really clever idea about rewinding time. It was to tell a story that I originally wanted to tell. When the theme Rewind popped up, I was like, hey, that's my story. That's the concept behind my story. So I will, be very loose with that terminology. I'm not going to introduce it as a mechanic, but more as a core narrative feature. And yeah, that's basically it. So I just thought I'd make this video because a few people had asked me in the Discord DMs and also on the comments on the game, how did you build this in a week? And that's basically how, being able to iterate very quickly within Blender and within Unity, using low poly assets. So if I didn't like something, I could just delete it and not feel like I'd wasted my time because it took me 10 minutes to make, and basically using almost just vanilla Blender with one or two add-ons that were really, at the end of the day, internal features of, apart from the building generator, which I made those houses in 3 minutes. So yeah, being able to iterate quickly and knowing, just having spent time with Blender over the last three years, I guess was the main thing. Now I've enjoyed playing everybody's games. I haven't had much time over the week to do it, but I will be playing some more games over this week. Anybody who's made a game that rates my game and comments on it, I promise you I will reciprocate the favor and I'll check out your game. Otherwise, I'm just going to be playing things that tickle my fancy. Yeah, I thought I'd make this video. It's probably gone a bit long now, so we'll stop the recording, and I hope everybody has a wonderful experience with the Game Jam, and I hope everybody learned something. And yeah, I'm sure a few of you are going to grow up to be amazing devs. Okay, my name's Peter Jessman. Thanks for listening this far, if you've come through this far, and I'll say see you later. Bye bye.